we're roller skating, we're doing BMX, we're doing poetry, we're doing all of these other things which got nothing to do with Top Boy and hoodies. So, and I like Top Boy. So again,
I also like Top Boy. Welcome to another episode of Creative Frequency. This week we'll be discussing the power of music and its role to drive social change, climate activism, and how we can be more environmental friendly in our own creative practice. Today I am joined by London-born musician, songwriter, producer, and performing artist, Love Ssega. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. How are you feeling?
Good.
How's life?
Good. Yeah, life is good. I'm just moving to the space of being calm. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
So just to be calm, and then the creativity will come.
Perfect. I've also, it made me think of a book that someone recommended called Rest is Resistance.
Yeah.
Have you read it? I haven't read it yet. Okay. Well, it made me think
I've read
of
the
that.
title.
Yeah.
But it's true. Yeah. And I know some people who are amazing artists. And they go on retreats and using rest as, and actually they arrange retreats for Black women to go and to rest.
Okay.
It's important. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's good. I need to look into that.
Yeah.
But for those who are new to your work or don't know anything about you, can you give us your origin story? Where did it start for you?
Yeah, well, creatively, I was a musician, songwriter, performer. And I think you start off covering other people's songs until you can write your own. Mm. So I was a big fan of R&B and funk and leaning more on the funk side. And then started as the songwriter and frontman of pop band. And then I stopped to do some research, then went back to tour with them. Then I became a solo artist. And again, I was just performing. So just performing alternative pop. I'd say, alternative pop. And then around pandemic times when touring stops, then I started to get more into more cross arts and commissioned work. So then that's working with institutions, with galleries, with orchestras, with other artistic things, as opposed to just saying you release a song, it goes on streaming, and then you tour at a festival. Yeah. So saying, okay, how can I use my talents in a wider sense? Mm-hmm. And with that, then a lot of the concept work is in my songs that I was writing. I touched on social issues, but then now it's come more to the fore, and especially with climate change as climate justice, which I think is an very interesting space and a place to be now, because it's different from other things.
Can you share a bit about how your interests and your musical influences shaped your music and your songwriting?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, actually. So again, I think it's you listen to your parents and you look at your parents, what they do around the house. Mm-hmm. My parents being from Uganda, anywhere in Africa is musical. Mm. So music is a very big thing. Yeah. So in terms of them growing around in that time, a lot of the music they listened to was actually Congolese music and the rhythms and everything around that. Okay. And then my dad being a big funk fan, and of course there's Motown and the great singers. You listen to R&B of that great tradition, and when people are singing in church and choirs. So I think a lot of all of that stuff that just resonates with yourself. Yeah. And then growing up, me and my sister, we'd listen to a lot of, whether it was R&B, but also hip hop and rap. And the storytelling, for me, the storytelling in rap, if we think late 90s, that's when the UK rappers were still rapping in an American accent. So just before grime had come in, so they were still rapping in American accent. So it didn't feel right. So then, unless it was like Roots Maneuver, who I absolutely adore. But then the storytelling, when you listen to a Nas or you listen to a Mobb Deep or something, the storytelling, it felt like, oh, you were right in there. So I love that. And then when I was starting to write my own songs and again, more acoustic things, that's when you reach out to the singer-songwriters. So you might listen to a Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin. You might listen to like a Carole King. So then that's when I started to write my own songs, and I was like, okay, let me listen to these people who just write words to just whether it's a guitar or whether it's a piano.
Yeah.
And there's that. So that's how I hone my craft there. But it's the funk, the rhythm, the beat, the soul. That's the thing, performance-wise. That's what I love to hear and to see.
Yeah. You've been commissioned by different institutions. So the National Gallery, Whitechapel Gallery, just to name a few. How do you create work for such like institutions that will still resonate with people that are still like quite historically rich, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So what I'd say to that is an institution is just a space.
Yeah, okay.
So the way I look at it is an institution has four walls. And then what you do in the four walls is what makes it you. So as an artist, you go in there. So, and hopefully if it's showing to other, let's say musicians, if I come and I always say, that's the thing, I always say I always say I'm a musician. Okay. That's what I always say, because it gets confusing when someone says, I do everything. I'm a chef, photographer, graphic designer, and this. It's like, no. If there was one thing you were going to do and somebody said, okay, for you to survive, give me your best performance, what would you fall back on? So I say I'm a songwriter, I'm a singer, musician, songwriter. That's what I do.
Okay.
So whether I'm going into an art space or if I'm going into a museum, an historical space, if it was going into a parliament, it's the music which is the baseline, and then whatever I can then get from the institution. So if it's National Gallery, well, you look at the portraits that are in there, and you look at the painters, and you try and draw on that. So I always try and go in somewhere and then say, okay, this is a space. Just in the same way, if you're touring as a hip hop act, as a pop act, you will go and play in a venue which could be a bingo hall. It could have been an old cinema. It could have been whatever. It could be a community youth hub. Yeah. You still do your set. You continue, you perform what you're going to perform. In this case, it's not as detached as, say, I'm going into a cinema. Yeah. You're going in and a gallery might have a certain type of programming that they're going on. And if it's something you can lean into, or if there's an exhibition that's going on and you're reflecting back. So if you've been commissioned to do something reacting to an exhibition, then use that as inspiration and then you can work there. But I love it just because I absolutely love it. And I would recommend it to other people just because where music has got to now and the time I've been in the music industry, just straight music, the popular commercial music industry, it's in a dire space for a multitude of reasons. Okay. But I think there are so many creative people, if they could not limit themselves to say, I've got to produce these numbers of followers, numbers of streams, number of views on my video. We need to get out of that because that completely destroys the creative process. And then to remember what makes you unique as a performer or creative person. Yeah. And where can you go and be creative? Yeah.
I guess people attach that or those metrics to them being successful and having money in your bank account. You know, if you make those numbers, then the numbers of your bank account will also grow. Yeah. I feel like maybe that's not necessarily true.
But now it's broken. Okay. That's the problem. Yeah. So it was fine before. And I think it's just like fine with anything. Like McDonald's, they sell their burgers and they make their money off the burgers. It's not the healthiest thing. Yeah. But we know what they stand for and we know who they are. So then you can choose not to do that. Yeah. The issue here is, unfortunately, when you see the people with millions of streams and they can't afford to go on tour. Yeah. You know, because it still costs them to get to the venue. It still costs them to pay the musicians, the dancers, the hair and makeup, the everything else. And it's difficult because that cost has gone up. And now the cost of tickets has also gone up. But the cost in people's pockets has not gone up. Yes. So you can see now there's a break. And streaming before, when your song was played on radio, you get paid real money. You get paid real money when it was played there. When you get streams, it's a fraction of a penny. And you can look at it and where the head of Spotify, Daniel Ek, has more money than any musician has ever had. Ever. Yeah. That system is inherently flawed. A tech by person. Design.
It's crazy.
A tech person has more... people say, tech is this and it's that. But has tech in of itself, has it got you out of depression? Has it has it connected you to people? No, in fact, we can see what's happening. People have getting mental health crisis and they feel like they're always on and they're watching stuff. But then this individual has creamed off more, and the companies have creamed off more money, and they've not put it back into music. They've not put it into music scholarships. They're not even paying the creators, the people who are doing this stuff. So it's a problem.
It's interesting because I guess if we take that route, is it his responsibility to do that? He built a company.
Exactly.
And it's been a successful company that even labels have a stake in.
Exactly.
They are profiting as well.
Exactly.
Is it their job? It should be, well, I guess, it's debatable, but should it be their responsibility to pour back into the artist? I would say yes, because I'm an artist, but, if we think of the regular, business person, there's commercial drive there. It makes it really difficult.
Look at football clubs. You see the football clubs and you see they invest in youth, not necessarily that they think we need to save the youth, but they know that after a while they're going to need players. So you look and there are these different structures there. You'll see that there's a big Arsenal Football Club, Man City Football Club, Barcelona, and they've got youth schemes which have been going on for ages. But creatively, if we're not doing that and we're not having the creative space where we're saying, great, that's a massive Royal Albert Hall, or that's a massive this or that. But we need the small venues for people to rehearse, to practice, to build their community, where people can afford, it's just £3 or £5 a ticket. I can see that. And that's what we need to do. But we don't see people hired and they say, it's nothing to do with us, but it has to do with you. Because the people you're signing, yes, they blow up on TikTok, but they would have rehearsed they would have had to have music lessons or dance lessons and stuff. So I think it's those type of things where we're in a state of flux. We're in a state of flux. My only thing is I wish the people in charge of these companies were less shameless and just come out and say, actually, you know what, we did it for a profit. Then come out and say that. Then at least more people say, okay, right, we need to now build alternatively. We need to build something different.
Have you had any ethical dilemmas when working with, collaborating with art institutions or just other creative organizations?
No, not really.
Okay, that's a straight answer.
Not really. I'll tell you why. Because I guess they know what I stand for, and they know where I stand.
Okay.
So, and again, it's one of these things, I do what I want to do. And that's always been the case. And maybe that's why I'm not signed to a major label. I do what I want to do, and people can see that. So financially, that has not necessarily been the most optimal financial. It's not depends what scale. Again, these things, it depends what scale you look at it. So in the short term, it's not the best thing financially, but in the long term, I think it's much better. And also artistically, creatively, you end up in a better space. But people, if they know what you stand for, they know where you stand. You know what you're getting from a situation, and you know what you're trying to achieve. Then it's not really a problem.
Okay.
So I think the main point is if you stand and people know who you are, then when they're approaching you, they know.
They will come correct.
Yeah, and they will know. And also for you to realize we're in, or for everyone to realize we're in an imperfect world where it's not up to the artist to solve every issue. So, for instance, you might say, I only want to perform in a place which, let's say, has green technology, and then you go and you see that they have one gas hob. Does that, for frying an egg, does that stop you from doing what you then need to do? Especially if what you need to do overrides, let's say, the gas hob argument. Because you're not gonna solve that. And so most powerfully, and interestingly, what's interestingly is when you go to some of these spaces, some of these spaces are actually easier to deal with than some of these other spaces who it's let's say, they've been more open, who might appear more culturally diverse. And then you might not be getting a fair deal. You might be getting a consistently bad deal. You might not be getting a fair deal. So I think that's That's an interesting thing. Like National Gallery, for instance, I had an all-black cast. I had black squatters talking about the history of squatting and the like, and they let me do it. Other places, they might be like, oh, hold on a minute. But I did that and it was great.
Okay.
And they loved it and they're still talking about it. So these are the sort of things. Let's not limit ourselves. If you then go to the space and then they're massively supportive of it. Again, I had Solomon O.B. who stood on the Colston plinth before when the statue got knocked down. And I had him standing in front of the King of Spain, who was a massive slave owner. I said, I want to have this black man here standing in front of this guy. And we're listening. Guess who we're listening to? We're listening to Solomon O.B. They were like, yeah. So again, it's an example. They can see who you're working with. And I think I heard a great thing from the director of HKW, which is an art institution in Berlin.
Okay.
And he said, some of us are heads, because now they've got, well, one of the prominent, super prominent, important art gallery in Berlin has a black man as the front of it. And he said, some of us are heads of institutions that we didn't build. So this is the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Your work heavily, well, let me rephrase this. Justice and climate activism is heavily interwoven in through your work. How do you balance your artistic vision with the need to create social change and making people aware of, like, guys, we need to make sure that we work towards a better space, a better world, a better this?
Yeah, I think, and the way I look at this is that is the work of an artist. Like, the work of the artist is to get something which might be difficult to talk about, and then to put it in a form that other people can feel comfortable to talk about it.
Okay.
So it might be if, for instance, let me just say, look at gangster rap. Society will teach you, if you break a crime, you're a criminal, you must go to jail and be cast out of society.
Yeah.
That's what society will teach you. The criminal is a person, and that person must have come from somewhere and must be in some sort of society, and there must be a background story to that. But then if society is not providing you with the background story, you'll just say, lock them all up.
Yeah.
So it was the job of people when they're talking about their conditions. So they're just poets. So the gangster, it's like reporting. They would say, look, fine, we might be saying, yes, these people are criminals, but this is the context behind it. Now you've got more background information, here's nuance behind it. Now you decide where the problem is, because it's easy to lock people up. We'll do that all day. That won't stop crime. Yeah. So you do that. So now, if you look at the climate crisis, where we've got issues that some of the stuff I start talking about, whether it's the need for clean air, I didn't realize it was a problem. And then you realize the areas that we live in London, where it's statistically, people talk about knife crime, but air pollution is going to get you more than knife crime.
Is it that bad?
It's bad.
Oh,
it's
I didn't even know.
So So the point of art is also not to scare people. So it's like creatively, okay, how do you find a way where to not scare people?
Yeah.
Because it's a thing where you might be able to, within certain parts of the population, an issue might be an issue based on where you are. Like flooding, if you don't live near a river, you're not going to be flooded. Whereas with air pollution, the air covers a big area, and it's a bit harder to get out of that. You can't just go to a higher ground.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So it's one of these things where you look and you're saying, okay, look, if also the people in London, if they don't create the air pollution themselves, because they catch public transport and stuff. People in London don't drive like that. So when these different areas, and then you're like, oh, hold on a minute. It's not even about air pollution. It's about, why don't we have clean air? Why don't we have green spaces? Why is transport so expensive? Even this public transport, why is it so expensive? Why don't we rebalance? So you start with one thing and then it ends up somewhere else. And I think what's interesting is creatively, as an artist, in a time where right now we've got streaming and everything else, you can listen to any song from almost any song from any part in history.
Yeah.
So then there's no point me just writing songs when somebody else, there's an Al Green version, which Al Green sung it better. There's a version that En Vogue had more emotion behind it. So why just create just to duplicate for creativity's sake, just to have output, content? You've got to be saying something different. So now, in the same way how we can look back and you say, here were the songs from apartheid, here were the songs when they wanted to stop people going to Vietnam. You know, what are we saying now about climate? What are we saying about Gaza? What are we saying about all of these things, because they're happening now? So that's the challenge. So the then it's for the creative person, whether it's dancer, singer, painter, to then put it in a way where people say, do you know what? That's good. I now get something which I didn't get before. I now feel something. So that's the challenge, to make it good art. Otherwise, you're just reporting and saying...
How effective is, in your opinion, based on your experiences, is music in really getting people to take action? Yes, we listen, we resonate, we understand that there are troubles in the world and we feel for people that are suffering. How are we making sure that this reaches the people who are policymakers, who are... I know this is going to be...
This is great. This is brilliant. Do you know what? I've never been asked this, and I think this is great. These are the conversation when I'm working with people, and when we have Live and Breathe, this big creative thing in Lambeth and Southwark. These are the things where, we can make stuff colourful and we can be optimistic of saying, painting a positive vision. But then what do you do with that awareness? What do you then do with all of that? And what I would say is, I think part of it is just showing people that there is an issue, and then bringing people together. And then it's enabling other people to come to a space which isn't polarized. So it's a space where it's not like, okay, even if you come to a football match, you know you support one team or another. So you know there's that rivalry. But if you can come to... Or if you go to, let's say, a Greenpeace march, or if you go to, let's say, Extinction Rebellion thing or whatever, you think, okay, this has this filter. But if you come and just to remind people that artists are human beings, they're not just random artists, they're human beings. Like, we pay our taxes, we, get annoyed when, Thames Water is putting up the charges and all these other things. So all of this stuff, if we can create that space for people to come together, and then someone hears and you see, hold on, you're enjoying this song about this issue. We should pay women more. And then you see someone else singing the same thing. It's like, this person might be on my side. And then you never know. And this person might have a beard, look really super old, and you're young and hip. And you're like, oh my goodness, this person also is singing. And then you say, did you just like the song? Or do you like the lyrics and what's going on? And then the person might say, I've been fighting about this my whole life. So then you start to get these things where it's not us and them. It's people coming together, and you've made that space. And I think that's the thing which I'm looking at and I'm thinking about now, is art as the convener, as in art as the way to bring people together. And then you sort of see, without it, people are struggling in life. It's not like, I'm going out to a gig and it's a lecture. It's like another lecture. I haven't done this. This is going to fall in. It's too hot. But to see, how can you bring people together, and then see when people go home, then they'll be like, look, there were 500 people there. There were 5,000 people there. Maybe let's, in our own way, do something about it.
Okay, that makes sense. Have you faced any challenges in integrating activism into your work or into your public persona? Have you had any backlash? Have you seen your peers maybe treating you differently, or stuff like that?
Do you know what? I don't think so.
Okay.
But the type of person, no, because I think the type of person I am, I think it's fair to say some people might, especially at the beginning where it doesn't necessarily seem too obvious. Some people are like, wait, hold on. Why are you doing this random thing? It seems divorced.
Okay.
It's almost like, wait, have you stopped being creative? Are you now just petitioning this?
Okay.
But it's always had a creative element behind it. So the first thing I did with Live and Breathe, when we were setting it out before, first off, I made a music video about, a song and a whole campaign about Our World Fight for Air, and took that to UN COP26 and showed that. So that was just me talking about air pollution around the story, because I heard the story of Ella Advocacy Deborah.
Okay.
And then that resonated with me for personal reasons, because I was like, oh my goodness, that could have been my sister. That could have been, it could have been my sister. Could have been niece, cousin, whatever. And there was that personal link. Then off of that, I was thinking, if I could do this, can't other people in Lambeth and Southwark, other Black people, isn't this a way for them to talk about their experience in an interesting way, which is not just, all right, you're on the news or you're talking because there's an election coming up or there's a campaign. Creatively, there's a challenge.
Yeah.
So, and then the first thing was, then I wrote a piece of music, which Philharmonia Orchestra then recorded. We went to Abbey Road, recorded it with John Barrett, who's an amazing engineer who I was dying to work with. And then that didn't have any lyrics. Whereas before, songwriter, singer, lyricist, I had no lyrics because I just said, I just want the music to be there to make this like a superhero theme tune. And then I reached out to all these the creative community in Lambeth and Southwark to say, okay, how do you respond to this piece of music and air pollution or need for clean air?
Yeah.
It started with the music. So it started from that. So no one can just say, oh, you just started with a campaign, then you slapped on a jingle.
Yeah.
It started with the music.
Yeah.
And then from that, you go forward. I think some people maybe couldn't see, but that's their business. That's not my fault.
Yeah.
And then now it becomes interesting, and hopefully it encourages other people to say, look, do what you're doing in your lane. But if you want to try something else, there's another lane. Yeah. Like, let's not limit ourselves creatively.
Yeah. You mentioned Live Plus Breathe.
Yeah.
So you're the founder. Can you share a little bit about the initiative and
mission? Well, the whole point there is in Lambeth and Southwark to use creativity for mainly Black communities to talk about the need for clean air. Because when we look at the green movement and air pollution movement and stuff, it's quite white and middle class led. That's sort of the flavor of it, in terms of these are people who are setting things up and advocating for things. I think some of the tactics where people are saying, look, sign a petition, in terms of when you look at government and it's go to your council and stuff. A lot of these things, they're not accessible because they say come at 5 p.m. to the council. And it's like, well, some people are still working. Yeah. They can't afford to come to they can't afford to come at 5 p.m. Yeah. Then fill in this petition and sign your name. It's like, well, these are people who underwent the hostile environment with the Conservatives for 14 years. They don't want to put their names to official documents, because don't forget and in this particular area, these communities we're talking about, Brixton, Peckham, we've got the Windrush generation who still haven't been compensated. So they've got there's all of this historical stuff, whereas then another thing is, I thought this was a great chance to not just spice up the clean air movement and have some diversity in it, but also to show younger people to say, look, your creative skills, they can have a voice here. Yeah. Your voice can be more powerful than just a few TikTok views or likes or shares. So come over here, and then you're going to get paid for your creativity. And then you can lend your voice here. And then when we make these videos, and Jada David just comes up with an amazing poem, Breathe Like You, and we record that, and then Ramon Anderson, amazing Black director from Loughborough Junction, from the area, then shoots this. And then we take it we're like, right, we're going to take this and then have it shown at the Royal Opera House, have it shown at Central St. Martin's, have it shown at South Bank, have it shown in Brussels, have it shown in Paris, have it shown in so many different places. And then that's because of this thing, taking people who record labels aren't doing anything, of the dancers, I don't know whether these other dance institutions are promoting them. It's like, well, we haven't got time for that. Yeah. Let's create this and then show everybody else, and then show other people. This is also what, quite intentionally, this is what Black people are doing. We're roller skating, we're doing BMX, we're doing poetry, we're doing all of these other things which got nothing to do with Top Boy and hoodies. So, and I like Top Boy. So again,
I also like Top Boy.
It's that thing where we can't, if other people can have films about inventing a mop, why can't we talk about our environment and what we like to do, and why there aren't more spaces for us to BMX?
Very true.
And how can you move faster how can you move? So over this time that Live and Breathe has been going, thanks to the amazing community partners, where we've had Poetic Unity, CC with us, Roland Stroll. We've had Peace Ballers. We've had Black Farmers Market. We've had Neon Performing Arts, Neon Elevate, and a whole bunch of people. We've had Ori as well, great music collective. We've had a whole bunch of people. And when you see how they're coming through and saying, oh, do you know what? This is how we want to talk about this topic, and this is how we want to do something. And this is why we want to have our events to bring people together. Yeah. It's, in a way, Live and Breathe is just like a tiny little umbrella to help spotlight, to say, okay, here's the thing. Now look at everything that's going on in a positive way.
I love that, yeah.
So that's the idea behind it, in a positive, colourful, amazing way. So that's what art should be. Yeah. Shouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. How do you see that evolving? The positive impact. How do you see music, visual arts continue to educate, to encourage action?
Well, do you know what I think? Future? Well, I think the main way is also to show other people this is possible. Okay. And this is a thing. So we've got partners who do whatever they're doing. Yeah. But then the fact that they now, as part of what they're doing, so for instance, let's just say Poetic Unity, they do amazing, incredible stuff on mental health, on just performance, and all of these, a whole bunch of different things. But then now they've got Clean Air for the Ends, where they went to Forest, Ryan, the founder and CEO, they just had 10-year anniversary. They went to Forest Bikes and said, can we have 100 free bikes so that we can go on bike rides once a year? And they said yes. And then they did that. So again, it's seeing what's already there. And it's just to show, wait, hold on, how can we push to make things cheaper, more accessible? And I went on the bike ride on a Sunday morning. I was like, oh my God, the things you do for love and passion. And it was the most fun I've had. Because everyone there was like, it was like we were kids. We were riding around Brixton and Peckham. And we realized we're so glued now to our devices and whatever it is. When was the last time you met up with 50 people and just went on a little bike ride? Yeah. So it's these amazing ideas which come from them. And then if they're different ideas, if it's space for them to say, look, hold on, yes, we believe in that, you go and do that, and it has other added benefits, then it's fantastic. So you want to seed ideas so other ideas grow and then they flourish. Yeah. So individually, if Live and Breathe can just come in and say, right, we think of all these creative people who are around that we know, yeah, you can do that. Yeah. Here's a little bit of support. Now you go off and fly with this idea. And then if there's anything else, look, we're here. But that's the main point, just to say, can we encourage more people to do that? And then for people, be it Arts Council, be it venues, be it whoever, they should be looking and they should be doing themselves. They've got deeper pockets than what's over here. So it's like, open up. Let's be excited. Yeah. We don't need to hear about Oasis reunion. We don't need to hear about, it's just, we don't need Downton Abbey. Like we don't need that. We've got enough. Yeah. They're fine. But there's more column inches which should be spent on new things. Yeah. And investing in your community, the boroughs. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Makes sense. Yeah. I want to say we need to do a part 2. Considering the time, I know that, time is precious. You have to be in other places as well. There's so much more that we haven't even touched on. But I want to say, let's pause this and revisit and continue the conversation in all types of directions. But I want to say thank you. Oh, no. Well, thank you. I think also, just before this, I feel I need to interview you as well. So we'll put that, we'll have to schedule that in. So there could be a conversation. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. Let's, actually, where can people find you? So if they listen now and they say yes. If they want to find me, it's very difficult. If they want to find me, nominally so on Instagram, I think that's the one last thing I'm hanging on to, at Love Ssega. So LOVESSEGA. So at Love Ssega, one word. www.lovesega.com. Remember, it's 2 S's. Then with Live and Breathe, it's at We Live and Breathe, spelled out. So WELIVEANDBREATHE. And then, WeLiveandBreathe.org.
Okay.
That's how you.
Perfect. Well, we will continue. We will continue this conversation at a different time. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Yeah.